Okay, we are back live with another week, another edition of PB Betting here on X and YouTube and Spotify. Paisley, another week of college football. As we were just talking before we started here, a lot of really close calls, a lot of great games, a lot of close games, a couple scares. A&M, really the highlight of the Saturday, probably coming back from that 30-3 deficit, largest comeback in school history. Just a wild day, up and down. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it was too hot of a records on the page here.
Yeah, not our best work. Pretty not good all around. I did go 3-0 on locks. That was the only bright spot. That was it was the weirdest weekend. Watching the games, in and out of the house all day, and then picks my ones I really loved. Got home, but the ones, the rest of the card, especially the nightcap, once again was not good. So. Yeah, just a lot of cluster ones. I feel like the ones we missed by a ton of points. And the ones we won pretty comfortably, or it wasn't really a sweat. So it's one of those, and like you said, close calls. That was the theme of the weekend, honestly. Like you said, with Texas A&M. We'll get to Michigan a little bit. Some of these teams really scraped by. USC had a late win, comeback. So could have been out of the playoff picture, but they squeezed by. So that's somewhere people will see the wins and they'll see them move up the rankings, possibly, or stay at their spots. But these teams just keep looking for ways to lose. And it's going to be a clunky end of the season here, playoffs, maybe betting a lot of underdogs here. I'm thinking with all these teams, because there is really not a clear-cut team besides Ohio State. It is literally them and everybody else. And, we thought maybe Texas A&M could be that next team. Indiana that one week, and they've definitely shown some big holes. Alabama game we'll get to. They're not maybe as good as what we thought. So, really interesting weekend. We found out a lot, but not the crazy madness that we could have gotten if these games would have broke a little bit different in the late stages.
Yeah, it's really outside of Ohio State. It's really just everybody. I mean, it's a cluster right behind them. So it's Ohio State's national title, I think, to lose at this point. And then the A&M thing that was just wild. The really crazy thing is the Oklahoma win over Alabama. That now the SEC is it's just chaos, because now Oklahoma, where do you put them? Like, they're now in. Alabama now falls back. Like, how's that all going to play out? Could really be a nightmare type scenario for the committee if you have like 2 or 3 of those SEC teams sitting on the fringe. Like, what do you do with them? I guess now Texas has played their way out, so that's good at least. But overall, it was crazy. Records, you see you 8-15, unfortunately, on the sheet, so below 500. I as well, below 500 at 9-10. So not great, not catastrophic, but certainly would like to be the other way for both of us. Like you said, your locks were really good, 3-0 on the locks to bump those numbers. So nice job there. And then my locks continue just to fail here this season. It's been the story of 2025. One game that we're not really going to break down, but I think both of us were on South Florida. That was just a surprise. It seemed like most of the country was on South Florida, and they just really didn't show up. Navy played a great game, got the win outright, didn't need any of the points. And then another team that I'm really frustrated with, was frustrated with them before. Now I am again. It's TCU, just absolutely blown out by BYU. Those are 2 games that we're not really going to cover, but just 2 of my locks that I really liked going into Saturday. And then looking back, just frustrating all around.
Yeah, the UCF one, they just never got off the bus. Like they had a tough schedule all year, and they've been like checking off, winning, and they did have that loss to Memphis, but they were definitely maybe the most talented group of 5 team, and I don't think they're going to have a shot now to get back into the title game or even get a spot in the playoff potentially. So that was a bummer, going against the Navy defense that has been terrible all year, but they played really good in that game. So give credit to Navy. And now Navy finds itself kind of in the American Championship spotlight now, that if they handle business. They still have a tough one. I think they still have another tough game or 2 on the schedule, so it doesn't get easy for them. And then, TCU, I was on that one, didn't put it on the page, but I was on them in real life, and that game was over in the first couple seconds. BYU, everyone kind of wrote them off after that Texas Tech loss, but they responded really well. Now, do I think they're, a top-tier team and, top 10 in the country? Still, no. But they did have a nice response there at home. They seem to play really well at home, so, we're still trying to figure out stuff here even late in the season. But on the road is where they struggle. They have a tough one coming up at Cincinnati. That's the one I wanted to target a little bit more this next week. So That's going to be a big one for the Big 12 race there in BYU. But so some of these teams we thought maybe were dead now kind of coming back into the picture. And then some of these teams maybe that we thought had some life, like USF, like you talked about, season's probably over now. So
Yeah.
It's going to be a clunky bubble this year. We talk about the bubble in March Madness, but this bubble, and I hate to say, and we'll break down their name game, but with them looking as impressive as they did, that's just going to throw another wrench into it. Because if they didn't look good, then that would, maybe muck it up a little bit and you could keep them out. Right. So it's just a lot of factors. So yeah, that 9 through 14 range is going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, on the slate too, my card. I started 6-0, had the nice win with Clemson on Friday night that I liked, as you just said too. I didn't see that how emotional Dabo was after the game. That was that's crazy. Just treating like every game like a Super Bowl at this point, but it just shows you how much is being dumped into the season and how tough it is to win. But that is hilarious. They get a 1-point win over Louisville. Got Northwestern. We'll talk a little bit about that too. Michigan really struggled. Northwestern was right there, had a chance to win. Michigan came all the way down to a field goal, won that game. Doubled hit on Notre Dame, so thank you for that. Got the first half and the outright spread. Although I did pay the price doing it with Duke also, so I guess everything evens out. I got a little greedy with it. So sometimes those are great because you could have a couple nice wins around, plus 100 or minus 100 even. But if you do it too much, you could lose a lot also. So it works both ways. Got BC plus 16, also almost win, one of those close upsets we were talking about, nearly knocked off Georgia Tech. Tulsa, that was nice, winning over Oregon State. Talked about it a little bit last week, Paisley, Penn State, -7. I liked it all week. They showed up. They got the cover. I personally think it could have been a lot more than what it was. I think it was 28-10, but there was a couple of scoring opportunities. I thought they really could have put up even more points. Michigan State really just couldn't do anything offensively with the backup quarterback. They got that one early broken play, and that was their highlight of offense all afternoon. Just nothing working for them. Wake -5.5 got the win over North Carolina. Bill Belichick coming back down to reality a little bit after getting a couple wins. And then I got Florida State late last night. That was all of my wins, but disappointing after starting 6-0. We'll talk about Ole Miss too. One of my losses. They just looked ugly, nearly lost that game outright, and then ended up winning by 10. Miami blowing out North Carolina State. That not a lot of people thought that. They really, look like they're trying to get back in the playoff hunt. We'll see if that will continue. And then a lot of other red on my card. Bama, you called that when you were all over Oklahoma. Texas also struck out on them. So as much green as I started the day with, it really came back to reality with a lot of losses at the end to of course, end at 50%, which it seems like it always does.
Yeah, both of our cards were very green to start the day, and that's why I thought maybe we're going to have a better day than most. And then about 6 p.m. on Eastern time, not a lot of wins for us. And starting that Michigan State game, you were right on that one. You called that one good. I just can't believe Penn State's still playing this hard. I mean, got to give them credit. They're still playing hard for the coach, still trying to fight for that bowl eligibility. So they're playing hard. They have the talent. They definitely look a lot better with the new quarterback under center there. So got to give them a lot of credit. Michigan State, like you said, just didn't show up. That was terrible. My biggest regret probably started Friday night with Minnesota. That was just a horrendous pick. I thought Oregon was have a couple players banged up that they weren't going to play because they're trying to save for the long haul. No, all 4 or 5 of them play because they need to beat Minnesota by 40. Of course, that's what you have to do on a short week on a Friday night. So that one was annoying. I had the Notre Dame Northwestern back-to-back at the 12 o'clock spot. Northwestern covered that game easily. Notre Dame too. Some of our winners were just easy rocking chair winners, but then the losses were just not even close. Like Texas A&M that I had almost reversed it where they almost lost by 17 or 18, which is pretty crazy when you're given that amount. Air Force was close. They lost their quarterback in the third quarter, which really hurt them. They had to go to a third string because they didn't like the backup quarterback either. They were kind of going back and forth. They lost by 10, so they were close there. And then Arkansas, too, almost won the game outright. We had a lot of underdogs that almost won outright. They lost by 1 point on the road at LSU. They played really well. Just lost that one. The Tulsa pick was nice. Our mean green, shout out my cousin Nate. We text every morning about it. They're my favorite team in the country to bet on. You just bet on them. They blow out the team. I saw you actually took UAB. I didn't even realize that case before we started the show here, but so got you on that one head-to-head. But they are just a machine. When they play a lower team, given a big number, they're amazing. Now, when they play South Florida and it was a pick 'em, didn't really show up for the game, but they have a great chance and inside track for the American here, and they're playing hot. They're really getting hot here down the stretch. Them and JMU are playing very hot, very good football out of the group of 5. So love the Mean Green there. North Texas have been treating me well all year. I'll take the head-to-head against Oklahoma too. That was a good one that I just kind of saw it out, played out exactly how it was thinking. We'll break down that game a little bit more in detail. Iowa too, almost blew the cover at the end, which was pretty crazy because they were up the whole game too, getting 6.5. North Carolina State, like you said, no show. Duke, no show. UNC, not even close. Wake killed them there. Mississippi was the head scratch. We'll break that one down. But they don't look good. They don't look like a top 10 team. Utah State, I was telling you about that game. Probably nobody was watching that one. They had 2 or 3 chances to win on a field goal in regulation and overtime. They missed both of them. The kicker was 2 for 5 on the day, almost 1 for 5. So just a crazy game there late at night in Las Vegas. But they did get the cover for us, thankfully. Delaware, 10-point favorites, losing to 1 loss, Sam Houston State. Complete shocker of the day. No one was probably watching that game either. And then the over in the Texas game was very I just didn't think Texas would get shut out that much, and we'll break that game down a lot later. But Arch looked completely lost the whole game, and Georgia absolutely dominated. So a couple nice calls, but like we said, some of our losses just really piled up. But I feel like the games we broke down or talked about, we really hit and nailed out of the park. So all around crazy day. So the record, I feel like, doesn't really reflect it, but just a tough one overall this weekend.
Yeah. We got a couple more weeks here left of the regular season, so we appreciate everybody tuning in. But might as well get right into it, Paisley. Oh, real quick, that takes our overall record to 213, 229, and 11. So you probably hear those numbers. It doesn't mean a lot. We're just slightly below 50%, and we'll just keep it at that. And then hopefully, I'd say the goal is to try to get to 50 here by the end of the season. It's going to be tough with just a 2-week turnaround. Maybe if we count conference championships, if we could rattle some wins, but we're going to need probably about 6 really good slates to end the season pace to get above that 50% on the page at least. All right, so that's our record. Might as well go into a couple quick headlines. Texas A&M, the story of Saturday, really. Watch that game start to finish, as long as with some of the other noon games there. This one was nuts. It seemed over. It was like 30-3 South Carolina. Really tough one for our friend, of course, Jackpot Carolina down there. Really appreciate the listen and the shout out if you're listening. But really tough one for South Carolina. They were right there. I don't know if I should be more like disappointed with how bad A&M was in this first half, or if I should look at it the glass half full and say that was a heck of a comeback in the last 2 quarters. Like, that was awesome. They're right there. You bring that energy into the playoff, it doesn't mean anything. They're still right in the mix of things. So you could almost look at it 2 different ways. How did this happen? Is one way, and the disappointment of getting absolutely bullied by South Carolina, a team that was really struggling, 3 wins on the season. Or like I said, if you look at it the other way, on the comeback by A&M, which was really impressive. Also, I saw that clip of Shane Beamer, hyping up the the visiting crowd going into halftime. That is a tough one to swallow, tough pill to swallow with how that game, ended, getting shut out in the second half. But just chaotic, and it's why we love college football so much, I think, and why it makes it different than the NFL is all these atmospheres and everything. But just games like this, I mean, any given Saturday, anything can really happen, and we'll jump in it with Michigan too in a second. But crazy game, Paisley and College Station. But at the end of the day, history probably won't remember it. A&M remains undefeated, and they're still right here in the thick of things. Like they could just turn the page.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers first and foremost to Jackpot Carolina. That's a super tough one for him and all South Carolina fans. And think about this case. They had Alabama on the ropes too. They could have 2 top 10 victories this year. Easily could have won these games. So I don't know what you do with Shane Beamer. He's just an idiot. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about him. His coaching style, coming up, double fist pumping on the way out at halftime like he won the game. Like, it was just an absolute collapse there. But that's the frustrating part about South Carolina, is that they could have a couple top 10 victories and they could play with these guys, and they have the talent to do it. And they're, even winning by margin at some points. Like, it's not like they're scraping by. And then they just blow these late leads. So really tough. But yeah, like you said, I'm looking more on the first half that you said. Like, That's just a little scary for Texas A&M. And I'll go through their schedule at whole here really quick because that's kind of my synopsis on this team here. But they're very good, but oh my God, like I don't know. They really show these flashes where they could just score in bunches, score quick, but the defense lets up gobs of points. They're really getting some lucky breaks here late in the game. They've won by 1 point again for the second time this year. Like it's just a lot of, I don't know. I still think they're really good, and I wanted to believe in them and maybe put them in that 2 spot against Indiana. But now I don't know. I think both of them are just have a lot of flaws, and maybe that's it. Maybe we just don't, you can't fully trust a team because maybe they just have a lot of holes. But great comeback by them. It really was great. But that was one I looked on the phone, and like you said, that's college football, and it's literally 30-3, and you're like, what is happening right now? Like it was just crazy. So great comeback for them. But again, it's a little dicey. Let's just take a quick look at their schedule overall, Case, because I think if you look at it in totality, maybe it doesn't look as great as it does, except for maybe a game or two here or there. But let's start off with the UTSA, Utah State, kind of similar. They won by about 18, 20 points, but they gave up 24 and 22 to Utah State and UTSA. A little worrisome there. The Notre Dame game, obviously everyone knows about that with the botched extra point, the holding that didn't get counted, the 4th down score at the end. So that one easily could have been a 1 or 2 point loss there. The Auburn game, they really let Auburn hang around, and we know how bad Auburn is. Head coach fired, offense couldn't get going. They won that game by 6 at home. Mississippi State game, the final score looked a little bit better, but at halftime it was 10-3, and they were really struggling with a really bad Mississippi State team. Florida game, they looked pretty solid, won by 17. Give them that. Everyone kind of forgets about that Arkansas game, too, Case, a couple weeks ago, 45-42 in that one in Arkansas, where it was a back and forth. No defense was being played. They were down, I think, 14 plus in that game too, and had to come back. So that one was scary. The LSU game, they were down at halftime, and then we see where LSU's at as a program and stuff. So great second half from them, and they really deserved it. And the Missouri game, I think they played really well. Got to give them a lot of credit there. And then now the South Carolina game. So you look at about 8 games, 9 games. They only looked impressive, or really looked like maybe a top 5 team in 2 of them, or maybe 3, 2.5, 3. The other ones were really close. And you look back on some of these teams, they're not as great as we thought they were going to be, like LSU, Auburn, even, Arkansas, Mississippi State. So I don't know. I just look at this team wholeheartedly. I want to believe in them. I love Marcel Reed. I think he's a great quarterback, but you're really looking at totality, and it's just not, you don't feel too great if you're a Texas A&M backer.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And I'm going to make a bold prediction, or I don't even know if it is bold at this point, but of course, it's what we like to do on this show. And of course, it's all just opinion, so it all doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But I think Texas A&M can't win the national championship. That's kind of where I'm at with them.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy to say you're undefeated in the SEC, and you're right there and you're winning games. And hey, maybe they could get to the semifinal. I think they could even get to the championship game. But I'm basing that pick off of, if you look at all recent national champions, Ohio State last year, Michigan 2023, the Georgia dynasty, Alabama, LSU, Clemson, like that's all it's been. I'm just looking at the list in front of me, the last 10 years. You have to have a very good offense and a complementary defense. You need to be playing at the highest level on both sides of the ball. And you just don't have like any of these recent champions where it's just you're winning these shootouts or you're winning these crazy type games. Maybe you have 1 or 2 down games, but you're right. A&M has shown a consistent pattern of not playing at their highest level. And I think they're really good. I think they could get through the playoff probably a lot. Maybe, rematch with Notre Dame. I don't know like how that all shakes out. I think they could probably get to the championship, but I just put Ohio State so much at tier 1. I'm not sure I'd pick anybody really over them, but honestly, I would pick some of these other teams that maybe aren't as talented as A&M or have a loss, but that are just playing more consistent on both sides of the ball, that I still would like them better odds at winning a national championship. I just think to win a national title, you cannot be lacking in any of those categories like that. And you're right, their defense is all over the place. They've shown inconsistency, and that's my pick. So if they win the national championship, we'll shut down the podcast, Paisley. We'll close it up. We won't come back next year. But that's my pick. I don't think they could do it. I was impressed with the comeback, but overall, you're right. Great point on the totality of the season. I just don't think they're that type of team, or they're going to have to do something that we just really haven't seen in college football.
Yeah, really playing with fire. And someone also mentioned their, softish schedule. I know it's the SEC, and I agree it's the best conference. Either that or the Big Ten, hardest to play. They miss Georgia. They miss Alabama. They miss Ole Miss this year, and that's the top 3 teams. Oklahoma, too. That's the 4 top teams. You missed all of them, and you're still struggling. So if you go down 30-3 against Indiana, Ohio State, even Georgia, Oregon, Texas Tech, you're probably not coming back in those games. So I'm with you, Case. This one really scared me if I was a Texas A&M fan or looking to back them maybe in the futures market or something like that.
Michigan, another team that survived an upset scare. This was a strange game. They were up 21-9 in this one in the fourth quarter. It was one of those games that I didn't have both my eyes on really until it got late. Northwestern had a rally in the fourth quarter, scored 14 unanswered, actually took the lead. It was up 22-21 in this one. Came down to a game-winning field goal that needed to go for Michigan. They outgained Northwestern like crazy, 496 to 245. But this is not 5 turnovers by the Wolverines on Saturday. Northwestern only had 11 total first downs, and they were up late in this one. With 1 second ago, they were technically up. Craziness in Wrigley, by the way, so that's cool. Northwestern is playing their final games there now that they got their new stadium. But Michigan, very, very, very close here to being upset here by the Wildcats.
Yeah, some of these teams just won't die. Like, it's just crazy. But, like, there's some like Virginia. We'll get to them in a little bit. Michigan, USC. Like, do they really deserve to be in the playoff hunt? Probably not, but they just won't go away, and they still have a chance, and they still have everything on the table. But, yeah, Purdue almost got them last week. Northwestern, these are not the top ranks of the Big Ten. So it's really scary. And I think we're seeing the level playing field, not even just within the top 25, but you're seeing even at the bottom of some of these conferences, like South Carolina or Mississippi State a couple weeks ago, giving scares to Texas. And now Northwestern, Purdue, giving scares to Michigan. Like, there's not much difference in these teams. There might be, like, recruiting wise, 5-star, 4-star, but there's a lot of close games here, a lot of close calls. I'm just still not seeing it with Bryce Underwood. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but I just don't get a great vibe from Michigan this year going forward. Sherrell Moore, paying Underwood all that money. So just a team that, again, they're still in the playoff hunt, which is crazy. And everybody knows that big game late in the season in 2 weeks, playing Ohio State, hosting Ohio State. So anything's on the table there. But again, maybe this is exactly what they want to happen, like looking terrible, and then they beat Ohio State. But God, that offense is hard to watch. And that was a tough game to watch overall with a lot of defensive set football back a little bit, not a lot of first downs, like you said, but really, really close one there. And like you said, completely outgained them in yardage. And that's crazy that they still had to fight there to have a game-winning field goal at the end. So again, another near miss that would have knocked off another team, but they still have life and they still got 2 weeks left to maybe get into the playoff.
Another big one too that we kind of alluded to in the betting slate recap, USF Navy, huge one for that group of 5 playoff implication in the American Conference too, just to get in the championship there. I have to say I owe an apology to Navy. I didn't give them much of a shot in this one. They get the win outright, and who would have thought this game may be at the end of the year when they do top 25 games of the year. This might be right up there and close to the top 10. Ton of yards in this one, over 1,000 yards, 524 and 556. Between Navy and South Florida. A ton of points. Navy wins a shootout, 41-38. They just jumped out to a fast start, 24-9. They were up at one point. USF then came back, but every time it got to 3, Navy went down, scored again, and was able just to keep doing that and pulling away. In a thrilling game, I'm looking to at the box score right now. 40 combined points in the fourth quarter in this one. That's nuts. And that's just a recipe you'll see. I mean, you'll see that at the end of the season when we're looking back at games. But Navy got it done. Not a lot of people gave them a chance. USF's really out of it now. We might have to start some sort of curse here for being the best group of 5 or projected group of 5 team here in the playoff, because Memphis went down a week ago and here we are 7 days later. South Florida's in the driver's seat. Now they're out. So not sure if you're James Madison, you might be okay with just, sliding under the radar here these last few weeks. Let the American keep duking it out. Like we mentioned it last week too. If these guys beat each other up, you're going to have James Madison slide in. I mean, it's just going to happen. So definitely the result that they wanted to see. And yeah, it's getting chaotic, and but all credit to Navy. They got it done, 41-38 over USF.
Yeah, you almost don't want to be on the ESPN graphic when they do the projected playoff seeding, because you're right. Every team that gets in that slot, they're losing the next week. I would just love to see Navy now. I know, I'm the consummate of armed forces hater here, but it'd be hilarious to see Navy run the table here, win the American, bump over James Madison potentially, and get into the playoff. That would just be awesome. But yeah, like we said, the American's coming down. These are some really fun games and close games. So if you're not watching them, please get on it, because they're really fun to watch. Now you got a 4-team race with 1 losses, East Carolina, North Texas, Tulane, and Navy coming down to, I think some of them play each other too the last couple games of the season here with 2 weeks left. So going to be a fun finish. And a little shout out to JMU too. They crushed App State 58-10 or something like that. So they're looking really good. They're playing really good football right now and should run away with the Sun Belt. So you're right. It's going to come down to probably them, and then whoever can maybe stay in that one conference loss and win the American Conference. But it's going to be a fun race for the Group of 5.
That we might as well jump in. We got 6 games here. We're going to just preview quickly on top of the 3 we just mentioned. And then, as always, we'll have our winners and losers of the week at the end. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. If you are listening, please subscribe here on YouTube. We're trying to boost our numbers here as much as we could closing out the year. Want to see the support. And yeah, feel free, message us, like us about anything. We'll be back, I'm sure, next year, and not saying this year's over at all, but we plan to keep doing this. So retweet our stuff. And we do appreciate the listeners out there. But Paisley, might as well start. Your Fighting Irish got the big win. If you want to call it, I guess, a big win. At least Pittsburgh was making it a huge game. Unless you're Pat Narduzzi, he actually said the opposite and said it wouldn't matter if they lost by 100. And it looked like it was going that way for a little bit. Pitt made the score a little bit more respectable, scored a late touchdown, a garbage time touchdown, I think, with like no time left. I'm looking
called the timeout with 6 seconds left.
37-15. It didn't affect the spread, but Notre Dame really just took care of business here, as I think both thought. We both had it on our cards. 387 yards versus 219. This game was 14-0 in the first quarter, and I'm not going to lie, I kind of turned my attention to other games. It just wasn't much of a game. But Notre Dame did what they needed to do. It was a huge game for them. They couldn't afford a loss. Of course, the win out after the 0-2 start. They had to, and it looks like they're going to do that. And then Pitt, on the other hand, the ACC's a mess. I mean, they're not a good football team. I didn't really think that they were a elite type of team here. Maybe they could still backdoor their way in the ACC. I think Notre Dame, though, really exposed a lot of their weaknesses in this game. Thought maybe it'd be closer to start and then Notre Dame would pull away late, but it was quite the opposite. Notre Dame just kind of came out, smashed them early on. Jeremiah Love ripped off that 56-yarder early to just set the tone, and they get the win pace. So you got to be feeling pretty good. It was really the last hurdle that they had here in the regular season, and they get the win. And Pitt, I don't even know where they go from here. I mean, the ACC is just all around nuts right now, and we'll get to Duke, but they blew it. So wide open conference, but won't hurt Pitt in ACC play, but overall, I think this game really exposed a lot on them.
Yeah, no, this was a big one. This is definitely the last big mark, top 25, quote unquote, win at the time. They probably won't be ranked the rest of the season. We'll see what happens. But yeah, this was a big one. They really needed this one. Like you said, 2 now games, probably be 30-plus point favorites. So hopefully they should take care of business the rest of the way. But they're playing some really good ball too. I mean, this is kind of what we saw last year. End of the season, they just get better each game. Something that defense is playing lights out. And that is something I was wrong on early in the year. I was not a big fan of Chris Ash, the defensive coordinator, but once he's taking his time now, he is looking really good. And we kind of previewed this game and really nailed it in this one. We said the Notre Dame defense would create some confusion. Their pressure rates are really good. They couldn't get a pass rush the first 2 games. Now they're in the top 15, top 20 in pass rush. So the Pitt quarterback had no time to throw. They couldn't run the ball. So that's some, like we talk about, Case, with having both sides of the ball. Notre Dame is really rounded into form where we knew the offense was good. They have the 2 running backs. CJ Carr had another great game. He's starting to play a little bit better since that USC game where he didn't play that great. So they're really hard to defend offensively because you can't really load the box because they could throw it downfield. Malachi Fields was a great addition in the portal, big 6'5" receiver that could run. So they just like to throw him some 50-50 balls. So you saw Navy, Pitt, a couple of the Boston College even, just try and load the box, stop this run game. But now with Notre Dame being able to throw the ball downfield and throw it, deep downfield, push the ball, it's just really hard to defend this offense. So, once they get going, they had a couple, I think they got stopped on 4th and 1 from the 4th and goal. So they're really only kind of beating themselves up on offense when they are getting stopped. And then they had a missed field goal from about 40 yards, but we don't have to get into the kicking game again. They made all their extra points, so we'll give them credit there. But still might be a factor when they get into the playoffs. But yeah, Pitt I just saw the difference in athletes in this game. Like, I feel like Notre Dame just had some 4 or 5-star guys, and Pitt had that nice, I think, running back or receiver. I forget his name, number 0, Reed. Like, he's a 5-star guy, but then besides that, they just don't have much. So it really just showed in this game, and Notre Dame really did dominate. And then just one thing, I don't like to push back too much on the the national media and everything. Because I know you weren't saying it, but we were kind of the only two people I felt like they were picking Notre Dame. I feel like a lot of people were on Pitt plus the points. They're like, oh, that Pitt could really, put a scare into them. And then Notre Dame beats them. And everyone's like, well, it's Pitt. They suck. And I'm like, well, you can't say that now before the game and then have a different opinion after the game. So I don't know. It's just all the hate on Notre Dame. It's been building a lot this year, and people are taking shots, even Pat Narduzzi in his press conferences and other coaches like the Texas Tech head coach. So it's fine. Keep taking the shots. We'll just keep winning games and do our thing. And, I think they're playing some really good ball. And that's one team you do not want to play in the playoffs, I think, and not to be a arrogant Notre Dame fan here, but they are playing some really good football, and I think they're going to cause some havoc there. Let's see how the seeding shakes out if they get there, because we saw Texas A&M as a 20-point favorite. We saw some 20-point favorites close to 28. Notre Dame lost 2 years ago, or last year as a 28-point favorite. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Still got to win games against Syracuse and Stanford, but they are playing some really good ball, and I'm really impressed with Marcus Freeman and how he's really just changed this program into a top-tier program. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, as a Penn State fan, I'll say, that 20-point favorite thing doesn't mean anything. I think we've lost twice as 20-plus point favorites, so anything could happen. But Baze, I'm glad you're all in here on Notre Dame, because week 3 things were looking low, and it's good to see though get the win streak. So you're not nice Italian or what am I saying, Irish Catholic, Scranton, Pennsylvania. A lot of Notre Dame allies up there. So we'll see if they can keep doing it in playoff time. But I think you're right. I mean, there's not a lot of other teams that are crystal clear that we know how good they are. So even though Notre Dame has those 2 losses, they definitely are playing better out of the group of teams that are up there. So I think they have a shot. I think they're, of course, a below Ohio State. I think they're tier 1 and then everybody else. But they probably have an opportunity to, even if they play Indiana at this point, I think they might be the favorite against Indiana. I don't know what that spread would look like. Maybe Indiana -2. I mean, I'm just guessing hypothetically, Indiana -3, somewhere around there. But no, they do look good. And then, I'm also just not thoroughly impressed with Pitt. We'll see how they close it out. If they knock off Miami, then maybe that win will look even a little bit better. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, they do. I was actually looking at some spreads. Next week they have Georgia Tech. I think it's at Georgia Tech, so right around a 2-3 point spread. They have Georgia Tech, Miami, 2 big wins. So Pitt could get right back on track. So I'm really interested to see how they bounce back. That freshman quarterback was playing so good, but like you said, Notre Dame did really expose them. But we might be pushing all the chips in on Pitt. Hopefully it's below 20 degrees when Miami comes up to there in a couple weeks. So that'll still be a fun one. Hopefully they're still in the hunt.
Much as I dislike Pitt, I will be standing by my preseason prediction, taking them money line over Miami. I'm not backtracking on that. In fact, I don't care if Miami was still 11-0 and Pitt was a 2-win team. That has Pittsburgh winning that game written all over it. The only way, if Miami, if they lost maybe to NC State, I would backtrack, because I'd be like, well, they're already dead. Who knows at this point? But they're going to get right back in the thick of things again, and then right when they're like 13th, 14th, right on the bubble, they'll lose again. So all in on Pitt in that game.
They could trip up too, going Virginia Tech this week. Look out. Hopefully it's a little cold, and Miami's going to go up to Virginia Tech. So maybe it won't even mean that much going up to Pitt in the last week of the season.
Yeah, and it looks a big rumor out of VT this week. It looks like they're trying to get this deal done with James Franklin. We'll see. I think he's holding out for Florida State, but I don't know. Virginia Tech is apparently where all the rumors are. All right. Moving on, SEC, Oklahoma, Alabama. This one you were right on, Paisley. You were over Oklahoma. This is the first time I really struck out completely on Alabama this season. Weird game. Alabama down all game. They took a 21-20 lead in the fourth quarter in this game. They had a shot to win it. They were right there. Total yards, Alabama 406 to 212. Oklahoma only had 12 first downs in this game. So similar to Northwestern, only 11. They only had 12. Turnovers, though, also the story. 3 turnovers to Alabama, 0 Oklahoma. And they get the win 23-21. So once again, don't even need the points. Oklahoma wins outright. And this is probably the worst case scenario for the College Football Playoff Committee, for the SEC. Things are just going to get crazy now. Now you got to throw Oklahoma in. How do you compare Alabama to Georgia? Obviously you put Georgia ahead right now, but how will that close out here the last couple of weeks? Where all the tiebreakers go? The SEC championship is still up in the air. A lot of one-loss SEC teams now. So chaotic in the SEC, but once again, credit where credit's due. Oklahoma gets the win outright on the road, and they're right there now and have a shot to control their own destiny, I think.
Yeah, definitely was a weird one. You're right. Like Oklahoma didn't like absolutely dominate and looked amazing. The turnovers definitely helped. They were really key, like timely turnovers. Defense played good, I thought. The numbers aren't great. They were kind of chasing a little bit Alabama in that second half when they were down 2 scores, got it within one. But I thought the defense played pretty good for Oklahoma throughout the whole game. Really just limited the run game, like we talked about. Alabama just still doesn't have that running game. They just rely so much on the pass, but their pass game is so good, and that's why they're still in these games. It's that elite. So they could just get a little balance and be a lot better. And they're Alabama's defense again, like we also talked about, playing a lot better. And Oklahoma didn't really do much on offense the whole game. They had like one or two nice drives, but besides that, really stalled out. Their offense still has some issues. It's similar, I feel like they like the one side of the ball. They could do things really well, but then they still have some glaring holes where you just don't feel comfortable putting them as like a top five or a championship contender here. Look out for Alabama in that last week of the season. We were also calling that Auburn game in Auburn,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving weekend. That's going to be a dangerous spot too when you're only one dimensional. And now you're talking if Alabama loses one more, they're definitely out. So we were talking about them possibly cruising to the SEC championship, winning it all. A lot could change here in the last couple of weeks. So you're right. This was a huge shakeup to the SEC. Now everything's still on the table. Oklahoma, like you said, could still run the table here, and they're still kind of live. So a lot of chaos, a lot of teams like Texas beat Oklahoma, but Oklahoma beat Alabama. Georgia beat Alabama, but Georgia beat Texas. Like it's going to be a mess trying to figure out where to rank these teams. So I'm going to be interested to see this week where the rankings are. Not going to put a ton of stocks. We still have 2 weeks left, like we said, but just going to be interested to see how far Alabama drops from their number 4, number 5 spot. Will they be on the bubble now, or will they just move back a couple spots and still have a little cushion in there in the top 12? So, yeah, really interesting game, really weird. Final score kind of played out exactly how the game was. Very sloppy, ugly turnover, not a lot of great offense. 23-21. Oklahoma gets the short win, but really impressive. And yeah, they're my Sooners there. I should have picked them to win outright. I was texting you during that. I really liked them, but went with Utah State for the underdog pick, but just had a feeling Boomer Sooner would get it done here. They're playing some good football, did enough to win, but didn't look impressive. But that was still very impressive to go into Alabama. Like we said, they were playing with a lot of fire. Just didn't trust this Alabama team. They finally got caught. They almost went down, almost needed a 4th down conversion, maybe set up a game-winning field goal, and they didn't get it on like 4th and short around midfield. So they almost pulled the magic out of the hat. Kalen DeBoer was wearing the black hoodie, so he did receive his first loss, I think, in a while. The streak does end there. But yeah, fun game to watch. Really good, tight game in the SEC. But I was happy to see the Sooners get back on top there.
Yeah, and yeah, good point though on Alabama. Like they are far from safe. They got to go play
Yep.
in one of the toughest spots really around the country. And if there's anything that Auburn would love to do right now, it is spoil. It is play spoiler here on their biggest rivals season, and it really would be. I mean, Auburn, you're 1-6, you're 4-6 overall. Yeah, of course they could go 6-6, make a bowl game, but they don't care about that. They just want to ruin. If they beat Alabama, Alabama's out of the playoff. I mean, that's just where they're at right now. They'd be 9-3 with 2 bad losses. They would be out. I don't even think that would be a decision for the committee. I think they'd be 16, 17, even maybe even lower. So watch out for that. And then, yeah, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, they're all one loss in the SEC. It's going to make these last 2 weeks real interesting. Also, it'd be a great point on where the committee puts Alabama. Will tell us a little bit too on how much stock they are dumping into the SEC versus these other conferences. What are they weighing that at? And yes, also just see where Oklahoma jumps to. I imagine Oklahoma will be ahead of Alabama, but you never know. But they definitely should be. But definitely crazy SEC. They're at this point it looks like they're going to get a large amount of teams in. It's just really how many teams. Is it going to be 4 or is it going to be like 6 to 7 like some of the predictions are showing? So somewhere between 4 to 7 probably, but absolute chaos there. Big win though for Oklahoma.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of SEC teams, I think, because now they're kind of playing their way into it. We'll get to Texas. I think they kind of played their way out of it. But again, still could upset Texas A&M, and then they still have a shot. So it's going to be a fun last 2 weeks. There's still so much chaos. And even Oklahoma, they got Missouri coming in, plucky Missouri team playing better with a back quarterback, good defense. LSU, good defense, new quarterback. So, not going to write off Oklahoma that they might win those 2 games. I think they can maybe even trip up one time, too. I think we might see some absolute chaos here the last couple of weeks.
Moving on, Big Ten, Iowa and USC. Basically, we knew this would be a fun one to watch. It didn't disappoint. USC gets the win 26-21, but Iowa up all game, 14-0. They were up 21-7. Later, USC closed this game out. I have a note here on a 20-0 run to win the game. Like you said, they almost got the backdoor cover, which would have been nuts after Iowa really controlled this game. Yards were 360 in favor of USC, 360 to 320. But nonetheless, it took every ounce of energy for Southern Cal to come back and win this game against a tough Iowa team. They definitely showed they're tough. Got to be disappointed, though, if you're Kirk Ferentz crew to be out there up to multiple possessions and then let this one slip away. USC still hanging around now, 8-2, 6-1 in the Big Ten. Good game, but Southern Cal gets it done on the comeback. But you did get the cover with the Hawkeyes here.
Yeah. Thankfully, they got the cover there. Should have had the outright win, like you said. This Iowa team is frustrating. Like, if I'm a fan, if I'm watching them, backing them with my real money, they are frustrating because they could have had 2 wins, and this would have been really good wins against Oregon last week and SC this week, but they just won't change their stripes case. They just won't mix in the passing game. I know it was raining, and that's why we also liked Iowa. It was playing right into their hands. They rushed the ball well, 183, but they had a ton of attempts. They wasn't really running it for a lot each attempt. But yeah, the weather played perfectly. We called that. That's why I kind of like them to win outright even too. The defense was solid, but again, just they don't change. They just play their same base defense, zone coverage. They don't blitz. They're not aggressive. They kind of wait for you to mess up. And if you're a USC in this game, they didn't really mess up or have a key turnover. So you're kind of banking on the other team here to mess up and give you some chances in this one. I know they win a lot of games. The winning percentage is very high. That wasn't a terrible Big Ten West for about 10 plus years. So, I think you got to put that. But I thought this team would be a little different this year, and they're so close in these games. If they would just be a little more aggressive, get a little bit of a pass game, maybe blitz once in a while, maybe things could have gone differently, because these were 2. I think last week was definitely a little more heartbreaking, given the stakes at home and everything, but they were right in this one too. So it's just very frustrating to see Iowa, but got to give USC credit for playing in the rain like that. They are a past team. They really had to rely on the run game a little bit, couldn't really get it going to the level. Those 2 running backs that they lost, I think, are just really taking a toll on them. They have the walk on third string, so really losing that element of the rushing game there. But they did enough. They did enough in this game. Didn't get to watch too much of the second half in this one with traveling and stuff like that. So it just, you look at the stats, you look at how Iowa played in the first half. I was stunned they didn't win the game. Looked like it was raining, even picked up a little more in the second half. But got to give USC credit for a West Coast team being a little soft. Now they win a couple games. They had an ugly, super low scoring game in Nebraska that 2 weeks ago. Now they play an ugly slugfest in this one. So, got to give them credit. It's not the best looking win, but they are kind of going down, having some of these street fights that they would definitely lose or lose by multiple scores. So you got to give USC some credit there. And then they turn around and play another tough one going on the road against Oregon this week. So let's see how they bounce back. I already saw that spread around 9 or 10 points. So it's going to be interesting. So let's see if USC is legit here, if they could do it again going on the road. But very, very disappointing for Iowa.
Yeah, disappointment for Iowa, and huge game you just alluded to. That USC-Oregon game could really decide a playoff spot in Big Ten. Yep. I mean, that could really be a playoff game. And I know, USC hasn't been considered that upper Big Ten team by any means, but it's just how it's shaking out. You're going to have like an 8th-ranked Oregon going against like a 15, 16 USC. If USC wins that game outright and then takes care of UCLA, both will be 10-2. Both will miss the Big Ten championship. You have to imagine the committee would slot USC slightly ahead of Oregon, whether it be 10-11, 13-14, 9-10, like, so whatever it is. But I think it'll be one of those gets in, and that's just my guess. I think, the winner of that game probably gets in, unless something happens and, USC goes and gets upset the next week. But really a huge game. Game day's going there, which is crazy. The 3rd time an Oregon game is going to be on game day this week. And then the 2nd time they're going to Eugene. I guess there's not a huge, ton of great games next week. But huge one in Eugene. Definitely USC opening up as the underdog, but we'll see. It should be a battle.
Yeah, no, it's still an open playoff spot, the Big Ten. Like we said, this team won't die. Like Michigan, they just won't die. But this is where I push back on people that don't like the 12-team playoff. Like, these are such fun games because they mean so much now to the playoff. And we started last week with Oregon and Iowa, and that was a huge game, kind of eliminated Iowa. Now this game, Iowa could have eliminated USC. USC survives. Now you have USC-Oregon going at it. one team's going to have to get eliminated with a loss here. So I think it makes for a great November. You still have a ton of great games here, and they mean so much to the playoff, and that's what it's all about. So that's going to be a huge one. Like you said, if Oregon trips up there, their playoff hopes are done. So it just means so much in these November games or late in the season. I love it. It's so much fun.
I also do not think the committee wants to see USC win that game because that would cause chaos. Then how do you put a 10-2 Oregon versus like that 10-2 Vandy or 10-2
Right.
one of these other fringy Miami, like all these SEC teams? Like it's just going to be splitting hairs at that point from 8 through 15 really. So could be absolute chaos. I'm definitely rooting for it. But nonetheless, USC stays alive in the hunt, gets the win over Iowa 26-21. Moving on, ACC. Basically, this one was really frustrating. Like Duke, I was pretty high on Duke even after losing the UConn last week. I should have known, and also should have known that so many people were on Duke. And like we see so many times that just wherever the national media is, it seems like it's always goes the other way or where the momentum is. They were down 31-3 in this game at one point to Virginia. Not even close. I mean, this was never really a game. We don't have to spend too long on it, but 540 yards by the Cavaliers to just Duke's 255. They get the win 34-17. Got to give you Virginia some flowers here. I was selling them for a lot of the year. They escaped a lot of games. They finally went down like we predicted. But they found a way to bounce back. They get the win over Duke. A lot of people were picking Duke, and they're still in the thick of things here in the ACC. They got to win the ACC to get in, but at least they're keeping themselves alive. And this was a big hurdle for them, considering they were the underdog actually in this game, and they just completely took it to Duke.
Yeah, this was a whooping. Virginia really just laid the lumber early on. Didn't give Duke much of a chance. Duke really didn't even get to throw up on themselves or give the game away because they just got moved the ball on their defense again, like we said, at their holes. But I was surprised on the offense. Mensa was not himself. They couldn't really pass the ball, couldn't run the ball. Virginia defense, a little stingy. That's where I think the questions on them is their offense and Chandler Morris. But the defense playing some okay football, keeping these teams down. And it looks like that was a big win because looking at their schedule now, Case, they only have Virginia Tech last game of the season. I think they have a late bye next week. So they should have one loss going into that, or they will have one loss going into the Virginia Tech game. They take care of business there. They should clinch a spot in the ACC championship game. So, yeah, not going to spend a ton of time on this one because I don't think Virginia is going to make the playoffs. I really don't. I think whoever they play in the ACC championship probably will beat them. Now, it's, we have, like we said, Pitt, SMU, Georgia Tech, the other teams with one loss in the ACC, Miami right behind them with 2, Duke with 2 losses. So it's going to be a crazy race till the end there, but I just do not want to see Virginia win the ACC and get into the playoff because it's just going to be frustrating. But they did. Yeah. I think we were all kind of hoping Duke would just beat them, and then Duke would probably stumble somewhere else along the road, and they have 4 losses on the season, so it could have been a lot better. But now 5 losses. But yeah, this Virginia team, I just don't think too highly of them. But hey, they keep winning. It was a good win there. Let's see how it shakes out. Maybe Virginia Tech can knock them off and just get them out of this bubble discussion because I'm your team.
Yeah. No, yeah, good point. A team in the ACC too that's kind of sneaking in the standings is that SMU team. Not a lot of people are talking about them, and they haven't been great, but they're sitting right there. They're 5-1. They're 7-3 overall, and they probably can't win and get in at large. But if they run the table, you have to think they would jump into the top 25, and you'd also have to think they'd slot them ahead of James Madison, I would imagine. So a lot of people are saying the ACC could miss. I think it's possible. It's not a 0% chance, but I do think, they're in a safe enough spot where I imagine the conference champion you'll look at like 10-2. You'll probably just dump a little bit more weight over James Madison or one of those teams, even if, you're not 100%. I just have a feeling even some of the bias will go towards their way. So I find it very unlikely that the group of 5 gets 2 teams in. So this ACC championship is wide open. There's a lot of teams that, really normally this season would be over. They'd be playing for the, Quicken Loans Bowl in Detroit right now, but they still have all the eyes and everything looking for the championship. So everything's still on the table there.
Could we regulate the ACC to the group of 5 next year potentially? Because this is
that's
terrible.
True.
And one team I'm thinking about, if you would have told Florida State fans after that way they looked against Alabama week 1, like, hey, here's the standings. Florida's out. Clemson has 4 losses. Like, they're 2-5 in the ACC. Looking at the standings, like, who would have thought after that Alabama win and how good they looked? They could have easily been in the top. Clemson having a tough year, like we said, too.
Yeah.
Miami even, too. I think it's just going to just grind these teams' gears knowing that it's this chaotic, and you're going to have a Pitt, SMU, Pitt, or a Pitt, Virginia possible ACC championship. Like, you have to be grinding your gears if you're one of those fans or in that locker room.
Yeah. Absolute chaos. I agree, though. We should dump them to the group of 5, make it the group of 6, because them getting all this national notoriety is a little ridiculous. All right, moving on. We got SEC. This one was we thought it might be sneaky good, and it certainly was. Lane Kiffin needed the win. He gets the win. Ole Miss survives. I'm going to use that word, survives, over Florida, and they won handily late in the fourth quarter. They end up winning it by 10. But they were down, and this was a battle. They were down 24-20 at the end of the third quarter. Yardage, it wasn't very close. Ole Miss had the advantage there, 538 to 326. But it took a lot out of Ole Miss. We knew that this could be a sneaky game, as I just mentioned on the schedule. But they survived. They get it done. They're still alive. They have everything in front of them. But Florida was right there. And Florida's just like all these other teams that, the season kind of went off the rail, like Clemson, like Penn State, like all these other teams. You had the talent. We knew it could be a fight. And they were in this game. It was a battle, but Ole Miss did enough to win this game. They did dominate, like I said, in yardage and first down to 27 versus 14. So able to move the ball a lot here on the Florida defense. But Florida was right there, and they definitely gave a little bit of a scare, I think, to Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard to handicap this season and going forward, because you look at Florida, they absolutely quit against Kentucky on the road, but then they show up this week and almost, like you said, should have won the game outright. They really were in this game, really did a great job coming out early, coming out on fire, and then just had a couple late blunders. Yeah, this was a 27-24 late, and then Florida went for it on their own 3-yard line, didn't get it, and Ole Miss punched it in. So definitely was not a 10-point victory. This was a lot closer than what it was. The stats definitely dominate Ole Miss, like you said. But again, this is another team like Texas A&M, maybe in Alabama, where again, they're high up in the rankings, but do you trust them? Do you think they're that high for a reason? Do they have a lot of flaws? Do they have a lot of holes? They have the nice win against Oklahoma where they looked really good. So there's just so much chaos and so much, you could make a chart of all these teams win, lose, they're all over the place. But yeah, this one was really scary if you're an Ole Miss fan, because they easily could have lost this one. Then they have the Egg Bowl in 2 weeks at the end of the season. But Chambliss he got sacked 5 times, which he's a scrambling quarterback. The offensive line had trouble. Florida does have a good defensive line, even though they're having a bad year this year. But yeah, Ole Miss, another weird team. We kind of called that. We were both on Ole Miss because we thought, they would have a good game, good showing here. Almost got the cover, actually, depending on what number. I don't think it went down to 9.5 there, but this line movement was crazy. We talked about leading up to it. It went way up, way down. It was moving like crazy, which doesn't really happen on a game-to-game basis. And the Florida backers definitely covered and deserved to get the cover there. So, again, another near miss where it falls in that category this week, where could have been a big upset, could have shaken things up completely, but instead Ole Miss, they'll probably either stay where they're at or move up a spot or two, which is crazy to think. But again, not a good warm fuzzy feeling if you're an Ole Miss backer going forward.
Yeah, it's more just of a sigh of relief that you survived this game. And like you said, they got the Egg Bowl coming up, and no matter how good or bad those two teams are, it's a rivalry game and it will be a fight. And yeah, since we're in SEC, might as well just pivot right over to Texas, Georgia, just because Ole Miss now, 7-1, but now Ole Miss is 6-1 in conference, but now you have Georgia at 7-1 in conference. It's really going to be these three teams battling for who will play A&M most likely in the SEC championship game. But Texas out of it now. Georgia, big win, 35-10 over Texas. This game was never really even close. Georgia just took it right to them. They were up. I think Texas kicked an early field goal, went up 3, and then it was all Georgia. 21-10, 14-3, 21-10. They dominated yards, 357 to 274. So not, unbelievable, but not impressive here at all for Texas. Georgia, I think, went on a 21-0 run or something. Yeah, late here in the fourth quarter, scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth to really pad that score and pull away. I was on Texas. This was a tough one. I was kind of going back and forth. We didn't really know about both these teams. They had a lot of close calls. Both of them did. Texas definitely looked worse, and I was selling Texas all season, really until just this past week. I was buying into them a little bit. I thought maybe they were going to be one of those games that they escape those 2 overtime wins and then just, become a story and knock off, Georgia, and they Arch is looking a little bit better. And then they find their way in the playoff, maybe like a backdoor type of thing. But they just got absolutely humiliated here. Probably would have predicted this a few weeks ago after one of those overtime wins, but bought into Texas. I definitely shouldn't have. That was a mistake. They're on my list. Will not be betting them or mentioning them for the rest of the season. They have now played their way out of it. So big shout out to Texas. But Georgia's now right there. Big win, dominating win. Now all of a sudden are they, the best team in the SEC? They're going to be probably 4th tomorrow on the ranking show or Tuesday. So SEC's chaotic between Ole Miss right there, Alabama with the loss, and now Texas really playing their way out of it. Paisley, Georgia, dominating win, 35-10.
Yeah, dominating is a good word. Texas really got a late score there in the fourth quarter too. So yeah, it was just a complete domination. Georgia, a couple turnovers. Their pass rush got going. This is another team where we kind of question the defense, and now they're starting to play a little bit better. I think they're definitely playing. They had the Mississippi State offense, which was definitely putting up numbers. Texas was hot. Arch was feeling pretty good and kind of shut both of them down in the last 2 weeks. So we know the offense is good. They have an elite running game. Stockton's playing at a high level. He had a really bonehead interception that kind of hurt them and kind of set Texas up pretty close there. But besides that, he played clean. He's playing at an elite level. You could just trust Kirby Smart. He's just a good coach, good program. They just dominate Texas. And we kind of called this, what I was kind of saying in the preview. Going back to even last year, this year, like it looked like carbon copies of the game last year in Texas, the SEC championship game. And now here, that's 3 tries with Steve Sarkisian, who again gets a lot of praise and a lot of hype. But in these big games, he's really coming up short, not even putting much of an effort. Now, it could be the players. Arch didn't really play great. It's not all on the coaching staff, but they can't even move the ball past midfield against a defense that wasn't that great. And other teams had a lot of success on. So I'd question a little bit on the Texas side of, where they're as a program. We know the NIL's there. They have the talent. They always get the 5 stars. So what's the issue? What's the issue over there in Texas? And like you said, kind of playing their way out of it. But you got to win some of these top tier games. I know the Vanderbilt game was good, and then they almost let it slip away late. They had the Oklahoma win. Mateer was not healthy in that one, obviously, but again, still a good win for them. But they definitely were the trendy team. A lot of people were on Texas, and that's why I was a little confusing. The line was up to 6, maybe even getting close to 7. But then Georgia definitely showed why and handled business. And yeah, it's kind of coming down to who's the hottest team here in the SEC at the end. And I think you definitely got to give Georgia a lot of credit here. If they keep this up, let's see how they look against Georgia Tech last week of the season. They have Charlotte this week as their bye week that the SEC likes to do in November here, so they should take care of business there. But if they keep this up, if the defense could match a little bit and just get a little bit better, they don't even have to be top 10. They should need to be top 50, top 60, because that offense is legit in that running game. So really like what I'm seeing out of the Bulldogs lately. Let's see if they keep this momentum going. I think they should have a spot in the SEC championship game with no SEC games left, so they should have that 1 loss. And then, I would, depending on the spread, let's see what the numbers shake out conference championship weekend, but I'd kind of take Georgia over Texas A&M. That might be a fun shootout one if we get that matchup. But it's going to be who's just the hottest at the end here. Let's see how it plays out these last couple weeks. But Georgia definitely gets a lot of praise. They played really well at home, and that defense maybe turned the corner.
Yeah. That's a good point too in the SEC championship. I'm not sure how that will work out because Alabama has the head-to-head over them. So if Alabama wins, would it be maybe Alabama, A&M? But they're going to have like a 2-3-way tie. So if it's a 3-way tie, I don't know how all the tiebreakers work out. And of course, that's contingent on Texas A&M winning. Maybe if they get upset by Texas, which wouldn't be impossible. It's a chaotic year. You could have multiple 1-loss SEC teams. So it's just going to be how the tiebreakers work out. But I think it is going to be who's hottest at the end. Maybe not who is the best all year. Maybe not who's the best actually or on paper. But I think it's a sport of momentum, and you always want to be ascending here at the tail end of the season. And it looks like Georgia's certainly doing that, at least what they did this past weekend.
Yeah, and that onside call kick up 11 was pretty crazy. That was some gutsy call there. Great call. So, just little things like that. That's that championship medal, and that's why Georgia's won a lot of championships the last couple of years.
Yep, taking one out of the Saban playbook there, the surprise onside kicks. That's another reason, by the way, that at college is better than the NFL. We need to bring that back to the NFL. I'm going to take this moment to just attack that NFL kickoff rule. Do not like that rule. Yep. All right. Sitting right at the hour, Paisley, winners and losers. of the week. We appreciate everyone tuning in here to the episode. As I mentioned, we do all the recaps every Sunday, and then we'll do the preview here on Wednesday. We'll have some of our bets released. We'll do our whole entire slate on Saturday on X. As you see, we'll usually post those out Friday, so we'll continue doing that here the last few weeks of the season. Might do a special show for the College Football Playoff Committee on Sunday, or the college football when it's announced. So look out for that in a few weeks. But all that being said, winners and losers of Week 12. I guess we could start with the losers this week. We'll end on the positive note. Paisley, who is your loser of Week 12?
My loser of Week 12, kind of taking a little low-hanging fruit here. I think they're the only team in FBS, I think, not to win a game yet, and that's the UMass Minutemen. I'm going to take a shot at them.
Yeah.
I sent you the video what happened in that game. They were down 45-0 to NIU. They're at home. They kick a field goal with, I think, a couple minutes left, seconds remaining, and they set fireworks off. They went down 45-3. The fireworks go off. The 20 people in the stands are going nuts. The cheerleaders are going nuts. Just a funny scene. That program is broken. They are so bad. They made the transition into the MAC, and they are getting pummeled by MAC teams, and the MAC's not even that good this year. So that is a bad program. They were kind of saying that it's even like middle of the pack of FCS teams. Like, that is something that not a lot of people are talking about, obviously, but there's some good teams and really good teams, and there's some bad teams. Oh my God, Case, this UMass team is atrocious. They're just getting blown out in every game, and they are even, I think, a lot of FCS teams, like our boys in Tarleton State, shout out Tarleton State, would give them a huge run for their money. I think beat them by double digits. So this UMass team is just unwatchable during the weekdays now. Setting off the fireworks when they got the field goal, that was just a funny sight. Kind of sums up their season, but they might need to go back down to the FCS or somewhere else, or just get rid of the program entirely. They are a mess.
Yeah, that's good loser of the week. If you're launching off fireworks when you're down 40, I don't even care like what the situation is. I don't care if it's standard protocol. Every time you score, you have to, like, you got to read the room. And literally, I mean, if there were nobody in the stadium, I guess there was nothing to read, but that should speak everything you need to know about UMass's season. Yeah, good loser of the week, really loser of the year. I think sometimes we do segments like that. So big shout out to UMass there. And, it's funny, everybody preseason, I remember we talked about Kent State, being that 0-12 watch team, but
right.
I think one win, right? Or maybe 2 wins now. I'm not sure, but
UMass, I think it's 2 or 3 actually. Yeah.
Okay.
They have a couple wins. Yep.
So, some positive there for Kent State, but UMass, total mess, great loser of the week there. I'm going to go also kind of low-hanging fruit back to the Power 4, or maybe soon to be Group of 6, as we just alluded to before. I'm going to go the Duke Blue Devils being my loser of the week. It's the timing. Duke didn't have to do a ton to win the ACC, or at least get hot here. You lose to UConn. You're having such an inconsistent season. You come back, everybody's now high on you, and it's almost like a laughing stock. Like, oh, if Duke wins it, they're going to miss the playoffs. They won't be ranked. Like, that's how bad the ACC is. They have a chance, to win out, take it to UVA. I thought they had a shot. I thought they were better on paper. I really liked them in the spot, and they just laid an egg. Got absolutely blown out, 31-3. Really inexcusable there, and they got to be my loser of the week. Once again, when you dump all in, and speaking so highly, Paisley, of Duke here a week ago, and now I just look like an absolute fool, coming back 7 days later, trying to explain to all of our great followers on what happened. So big loser of the week for me is Duke. Very disappointed for them. Fan base should be disappointed. Manny Diaz, I'm glad he's now kind of officially off the list for Penn State, because I was worried for a few weeks there as they were getting hot, but looks like that is sold. That is no longer happening. So anyway, disappointing loser of the week, Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, they were like the most talked about 4-loss team, and they're so good. And that might be the most frustrating team for both of us this year. I think they definitely win that award because we bet them so much this year, and they're so frustrating. So I also stamp that approval with that one. Case, hate the Blue Devils. Terrible program. Just lose a couple more games, get out of the picture. My winner of the week, I'm going to go Sam Houston, the Bearcats. They got their second win in a row. We mentioned them last week, beating Oregon State up there when they got outgained by almost 300 yards. They followed up with a win against Delaware at home in front of their crowd of maybe 50 to 70 people there. Delaware was playing some good ball. That's another up and down team. Conference USA is just like the ACC, just bunch of turmoil, a bunch of people beating each other up. Delaware had a chance at least to maybe win a couple games, be at the top. They go down 10-point favorites against a team that has the worst defense in college football, and the offense is coming alive a little bit for Sam Houston. So got to give them credit. They were also winless just a couple weeks ago. They were 0-8, I think it was, now 2-8 in the season. So got to give those boys a lot of credit down there to keep fighting. It's not easy when you're 0-8 and you're getting beat by 30, 40 plus each game. So that was a big win over the Blue Hens for the Bearcats down there in Texas.
Also, great winner of the week. Also, it feels like every time we mention Delaware on this podcast, they're losing. I can't remember a time that Delaware has now won recently. So I know we picked them on the underdog parlay of the
I
week.
seem to pick them and they lose. Yeah,
they lose, even though they're a decent team all around. All right, I'll close it out here. My winner of the week, Paisley, you are going to hate this pick. You're going to be very upset on my winner of the week. I'm going to go the Navy midshipmen here. I know you're. I
was close to picking them for mine too. Actually, I was close. They were in the run.
I knew you wouldn't, Paisley, and I'm going to give them credit here. Big win for Navy. Everybody was writing them off, including me, including you, including most of the country, of course. But you should never doubt the troops, Paisley, because they did it. They pulled out the win over South Florida. They're now in the hunt of things in the American. I still don't know if they're a great team, but they put on a great performance, ton of yards, like I said, fun game, really controlled it, up a lot of points. So they should be happy they didn't blow it, or they could have been the exact opposite of the winner of the week. But they hung on, they win. They're 6-1 in conference. They're right there for, at maybe a 1-15, 1-20 shot here for the playoffs if all the cards fall their way, and they of course, have to win out. But I'll give them credit here. Navy gets the win 41-38. Really didn't think this one was going to happen, let alone did they, cover, but they got the win outright. So shout out to our troops there a week after Veterans Day here. So big win for Navy.
Yeah, shout out Navy. And just looking at their schedule, they go to Memphis. So that's going to be a big one.
Big one.
There. And then they do have the Army game. We have to look if that does count as a conference game because they are technically in the same conference now. So I'm not sure how that goes, or if they could maybe lock it up after the Memphis one if they have a NC State, Virginia type roar that's in conference, but it doesn't really count. So I have to look that one up because if they would beat Memphis, which Memphis definitely down, not looking too good, kind of ending on a downslide, look out. They could definitely be in the American Championship game.
Yeah, and I think the conference championship week would be before Army-Navy game, so it definitely can count. So so we'd have to play up.
You're right.
That would get really interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll put that on the watch list. As always, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We will be back midweek, probably Wednesday per usual. If anything changes, we'll post it on X. And everybody enjoy their week.